G'day, folks, and welcome to another episode of Encounters Down Under. Kevin joins us on the show to tell us about a couple of experiences he's had witnessing strange objects in the sky, as well as a disturbing conversation he had with a family who had their own encounter. So please welcome to the show, Kevin.
Welcome to the show there, Kevin. You there, mate?
Hello.
G'day, mate. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story and personal experience related to sightings and what conversation I've had with other people and that, other parties.
Yeah, mate, it's going to be great to actually hear these because, every story counts for when it comes to this sort of genre and oh, mate, it's going to be absolutely fantastic hearing these stories.
Well, I think the thing is, if you don't put it out there, people's not going to know, and that's the whole idea of this program. If you don't put it out there,
exactly right, and you've got the courage up to go and actually explain it to everyone there, mate, and that's the massive start in itself, right there.
Yep. No. It's nice to sort of relate what I've experienced, and as I said, spoken to people, to like-minded people. People who've got an open mind who are considering and believe in this phenomenon or alien planets, etc. It's simple as that. So
yeah.
no.
But yeah, mate. Look, tell us about your experiences there, and then look, I'll let you lead the way, mate. You just tell us what you've got, mate.
All right. Then to begin with, I'll give you a little bit of insight regarding my background. I grew up in the UK, lived in New Zealand for 12 years before I moved to South Australia. Personally, I was raised in an era when UFOs were basically ridiculed far more so than today. Something, though, I personally believe anyway, slowly but surely changing and in the right direction, although there's still people out there and that who have their reserved judgment on that. But principally, back in those days, anyone mentioned having experienced a sighting or whatsoever was promptly advised that many white coats would be coming to take you away in a little green van. Such was the attitude of the time, and I'd like to think we've matured a bit since then, certainly with the, as you said earlier on, the releases that's being made on in America and around the world and that.
Yeah, definitely.
Various bodies, etc. You just didn't talk about the subject back in the day because it was, like I say, it was a norm that was being forced on you. Regular argument was if there's anything out there, it would have been picked up on radar. Well, needless to say, that went by the wind when the Americans introduced stealth and that, chiefly on their aircraft.
Yeah,
so,
did not open their eyes.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you got to think about. That was the argument. No, it's on radar, and I had that argument so many times. I said, well, if there's so much in advance, radar will be nothing to them, and which has been proven. As simple as that.
Yep.
But my personal thoughts at the time, it was a case of simply minimise public interest in the topic, and they don't exist, and it's ridiculous to think otherwise. So classic case of restricting freedom of speech, intimidation, etc. So.
Definitely.
But it was such a pity, really, because I think, I'm sure a wealth of sightings experience would have never have been told and conveniently been forgotten by respective parties. So,
yeah, or they've passed away and it's been lost forever.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. It's just one of those things. Nobody likes being ridiculed. But at the end of the day, slowly but surely you've got. It's a bit like the Earth is flat. Remember the period when the Earth was flat, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know it's round. And people will be thinking, yeah, right, mate. So, but that's where I think that this period of time is the mentality of the people, and that's it.
Yeah.
But anyway, my personal interest in UFOs came from, basically I used to stare at the night sky, principally following the Apollo missions to the moon, and I was just wondering if there was indeed life out there. But my thinking was, and still is, with all those planets out there and taking into account the planets that we don't still know exist, there's got to be some form of life out there. It's just too much out there. So the odds are just too great, in my opinion, anyway.
Oh, look, totally agree. Totally agree.
You just can't. I just can't understand it, comprehend it when people don't sort of think that in that way. So, but again, going back to my period back in the 70s, again, it began to be introduced. The books started to come out from people's experiences, and you got the classic movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind that sort of stimulate a lot of people's interest. I think it opened up a few people as well with their experiences, but probably wouldn't have been told. But going back to me, well, my first experience of witnessing something unusual in the night sky was in the winter, in the beginning of 1976 in England. I didn't post this on the site because I didn't realise or feel that it was just basically an Australian page, but I've noticed later there's a lot of other people putting their sites in from New Zealand and the UK, etc. So I haven't written this one down, or posted it, should I say. So it's a newbie sort of thing. So,
That's fair enough.
but I've been out. It was on a Friday night. I've been out to the pubs, and I was with a mate who was coming home, sort of thing, because back in them days, not many people had a car. So, and weather permitting, I'd look up at the sky, and I wasn't really an expert on the stars or the like the Zors and the Big Dipper over the Plough and bits and bobs like that. But I just should have tried to make my own stars up. And I remember looking up one night thinking, that Friday night thinking, well, I've not seen those two stars before, And there was the reason what attracted me to them was basically they were sort of parallel to each other. If you imagine the dial of a clock, you look at it, it's 9 o'clock. I want to be at 9 o'clock and want to be at 3 o'clock. But the intensity of both those stars was the same. And that's what sort of got me sort of looking at them. And I thought, well, I've not seen those stars before. I just didn't recognize them. I've seen stars similar positioning wise. Maybe one was a bit out of whack in parallel, but one was always of a lesser intensity sort of thing. So anyway, I was sort of looking at it, and I must have gone quiet, and then obviously the person my friend was with, he took note, and he was looking at. I didn't realise at the time, but when I was looking at them, what they did is they changed positions. The star at the 9 o'clock position did a full half circle and replaced the star that was at the 3 o'clock position, and that star at the same time had gone round the bottom half of the circle and replaced the star at the 9 o'clock
So it's like
position.
it done a whole flip.
Yeah, basically, you get your two fingers and you sort of flick them round, sort of thing, but both in the same different position, or the same position the finger was in before. That's the way to look at it. I remember thinking, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And it just sort of, I mean, I don't know what distance these two stars are. Well, I'm saying stars. I mean, obviously they weren't stars, but I don't know what distance they were between them. But from looking at it from where I was, they looked similar positioning to, say, the stars on the Orion's belt. So what that distance was or is, I don't know. But it obviously must have been a fair old gap. What it was. I can't guess what it was, but it must have been a fair old gap. And slowly but surely, the star that was at the 3 o'clock position seemed to move away, but it didn't move along parallel. It looked as though it was moving away, so that at a 45-degree angle, it was moving away into the night sky.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
So, I mean, I've tried all sorts to sort of figure out what this could have been. I mean, I've seen rockets where they sort of spin round and all like that. The Apollo 8 mission, they turn round sort of to get a bit of a better boost and all like that, but there was no exhaust, if you know what I'm trying to say, or anything like that. But I don't think you'd see it from that distance anyway. But there's nothing there to indicate what was propelling or what had propelled these two objects now, and why they'd done it. It just seemed odd, and it really stunned us both. And as I say, to this day, I've sort of thought, what was this sort of thing? It just completely and totally was unexpected, and it sort of shocked us both. And I remember my mate saying, "What the heck was that? What was that an aid on sort of thing?" But no idea.
Yeah, it would just throw you out, wouldn't it?
Well, it did. It did for them. That's basically what introduced me to the fact that what was it? And we had no idea. And as I say, at the time, you couldn't really talk to many people about it. I don't really know what they were or what they was doing, sort of thing. But that star did disappear at the one at the 3 o'clock position. We watched it get smaller and smaller. That's why we knew it wasn't sort of going across the sky, or we would have watched it. You could see it was going away at an angle, so it made it look as though it wasn't going too fast. But I think it must have been because the way it was going in that direction. So,
yeah.
But you sort of didn't, again, going back to it, you didn't mention it to many people or anything like that. But I did talk to a couple of people and then sort of raised their eyebrows and said, what the heck was that? But I do know, I spoke to a guy, I think this must have been a couple of years later, and I said to him, just told him the same story as what I'm telling you now. And he basically, at the end of it all, he says, "Oh yeah, he says, I believe you." It's surprised because a lot of people down around about that period of time think you've got a mental problem, sort of thing. You've got to see you've got to see somebody. And but he said, "No," he said, I do believe you." He says, "My dad's mate was an observer just after the war, and these guys were pretty cluey, Royal Observer Corps, and these guys was pretty cluey, and they complemented the radar system that was in use to detect the Russian planes, who regularly tested the ability of the RF's rapid response, etc.
Yep.
So they could identify anything in the sky and all like that. And he said that this guy telling them, around the campfire, I suppose, in the front room, and it took place in the early 50s. And he said that the team consisted of 2 ordinary rank and file and an officer, and they observed this unidentified flying object, which basically meant it wasn't on their aircraft recognition, so they didn't know what it was. So remember, these observers would have used the highest quality binoculars known at the time.
Yeah.
But he didn't mention the speed, so that was the thing about. I was just sort of listening, sort of taking it all in. But his sighting, as I mentioned, the sighting, it didn't match any known aircraft, and they was also not aware of an aircraft that was capable of flying at that altitude. That was the other thing. So he said this sighting was reported, and by the officer in charge, and a few days later it was all dragged in by a higher ranking officer and told to say nothing about it. So the higher ranking officer remarked to them what they had witnessed was not Allied. In other words, American, British, Canadian over there and that, in the NATO and that.
Yep.
And most definitely wasn't Russian. And he left it at that. So he says they was left to make a guess of what it was.
Yeah, wow.
So, I mean, that's up to the listeners, etc., to sort of figure that one out. But
yeah, still to this day, no sort of explanation to what it could have been.
Yeah, well, no. Basically, it said it wasn't NATO, Allied, and it certainly wasn't Russian. So basically, the army was just implying it was not of this planet. Simple as that.
Wow, that would have been incredible. That would have been pretty sketchy back in those days too. They're going, what is happening around us right now at this time? Like, we're just coming out of World War II, and
exactly right.
we've got this flying around, so what's going on?
Well, exactly right. I mean, there was the Foo Fighters, supposedly, in World War II, and that people sighted them wherever and that, but I'm not saying I don't know what this was, but just that going back to the story, it reminds me of this program is that, if you don't put it out there, people's not going to come with a story.
Well, that's right.
It's simple as that. I mean, I'm telling you a story that somebody told me, and I believe the guy. I mean, what has he got to gain from making all that story? I must have thought about it for a long time. But you're going to make a story like that, so.
No, definitely not.
Like Ripley says, believe it or not, simple as that. So.
Yeah. Wow, that would have been incredible though. Either way.
Well, it sort of, made me feel a lot better from what I'd seen, the sighting I'd seen, and it was nice seldom do you get somebody to say, yeah, I believe you, mate, yeah, I do, and they give you an example of what they'd heard, etc.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, back in 1980, I moved to New Zealand, and I resided there for 12 years. I've never stopped looking up towards the sky, but in those 12 years, I never saw anything at all. I think it's, you read on your posts on your page and that people say, oh, I'd love to see one. I'd wish to see one.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of timing, the clear sky, and I'll say you're basically lucky. It's just you're in the right place at the right moment at the right time.
Yeah, that's it.
But like I said, I mean, for 12 years I didn't see nothing, and I thought with the clear sky in New Zealand, in particular, say to the UK and that, because the clouds, etc. We did used to get a lot of satellites and that doing their orbits over in the UK, so you had to be careful on them, and you got wise to them as well. And they reckon the area I came across a lot of RAF bases used to have the Russian spy satellites. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was the theory, you see. So you used to see these satellites sort of, in squares or whatever, certain shapes anyway. You could see them moving around the sky. When you used to walk home at night, it used to be quite intriguing sort of thing. But that what I reported earlier was that was just totally different. I've been racking my brain out since that day, and I've tried to figure out. I've looked at a lot of UFO programs, a lot of space programs, and that. I still can't figure out what it was.
Just weird how it's like looking like a solid craft, done a full flip, and then
must have
one
been-
just
must-
ducked off. Like, I'm going this
Yeah,
way now.
yeah.
It's-
Yeah, well, that was that's my. I actually honestly thought that myself, but I thought to myself if it was a craft all the way along, it's a long craft. But then again, there has been reports that some of these are massive, you know. But why was they just lit up at both ends?
yeah,
Why
it
was
just
it-
doesn't make sense, does it?
No,
Logic's
but
not there. Like, why do a full flip?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. It looked mechanical in its movement because they was in sync.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what got me. It was in sync. You know, and you thought, well, if something was timing it and what's the word, rotating it in sync with each other. You know, and I've actually thought to myself, well, it must have been a big craft of sorts that flipped
Yeah.
around. But then I thought, well, why wasn't it all lit up in like a big long cigar or something like that?
Yeah.
For want of a better expression. Why was it just the two ends? Because the sun, like with the stars, it would have lit it all up, wouldn't it? So simple as that. Is everything all right? Yep. Having to lock the door for mine. So
Oh, sorry guys, a bit of technical error on my end. Yeah, sorry, back to that. Yeah, to me it doesn't make sense, does it? Like, yeah, like from
No,
looking for like a
I
solid craft, doing a full
Yeah.
flip, and then one ducking off, and just
Yeah.
going over to the horizon. Like, I was going to question on that one too. Like, with the like, so that was the first light ducked off over the horizon somewhere and disappeared. But did you take notice of what the other light was doing from the
it just
original
stayed there.
position?
It just stayed there. That the 3 o'clock that went to the 9 o'clock, the 9 o'clock one just stayed there, and the 3 o'clock looked as though it was going into deeper space. It didn't go over the horizon. It went out deeper into space and disappeared. That's the way we interpreted it.
Yeah. Okay.
And the next night I couldn't see because the cloud was bad. But a couple of nights later I was able to see because I went out there looking for the star itself because I thought I've never seen that one before, or them two stones up position. So I sort of located and remembered where it would be. And when I went out, I looked a couple of nights later, it wasn't there.
Yeah. Right.
It had gone.
Okay. Wow.
It had gone. I mean, we didn't stay there all night looking at this other star. We did observe the other one disappear, go away into the distance, sort of thing, and disappear, gradually fade away. And we did look at this one. I mean, probably we looked at it for about 30 minutes or so, and we saw this one. They had stayed there. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to look out for you tomorrow night, but I couldn't because the cloud issue we had over there and that, and because it was the winter. But a couple of nights later, I did look, and that had gone, and I thought, well, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Bugger.
Absolutely.
Still though, yeah, it's very interesting indeed. It certainly makes you wonder.
Well, that's what started me off. I mean, there's no two ways about it. That's what gave me the. I'd always sort of had a feeling that there must be life out there. Now, whether it was visiting or not, I don't know. But when I saw that, I thought, well, no, this is something more, and I've never been able to explain it to this day. You know, I have tried to. I mean, I'm not a person who sort of lets things just go by. Yeah, no, it was that. I try and sort of figure it out, analyze it, etc. But
Yep.
I've not figured that one out. But
No, it just always leaves you in question, doesn't it? Doesn't matter how much you try and brainstorm on it, you just can't. Like, you
No.
might think there might be a possible answer, but then you're like, no, it just still defies whatever we've
Yeah.
like sort of
Yeah,
grown up
yeah.
with. It just defies
Yeah.
everything.
yeah, as I say, it's only because I'd looked at the skies, I saw these two stars. I thought I ain't seen them before.
Yeah.
I don't recognise them. You know, I mean, as I say, I want a stargazer or an expert, but I'd obviously looked enough to sort of figure out. Well, I haven't seen these two before, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
But
Wow,
anyway,
that's incredible.
Back in 1992, I moved to Adelaide, South Australia, and well, I have actually seen some spectacular sightings in the sky: comets, shooting stars, space shuttle, space station,
Oh, beautiful.
and a couple of UFOs.
Oh, bring them on. They're the juicy ones.
Oh my God. So, and also a couple of conversations, or a fascinating conversation I had with two people who experienced, in my opinion, probably one of the major UFOs encounterings counters in Australia. That I really felt sorry for them, that family that night when they sort of when we spoke about it. But anyway, back to me. I have posted this conversation as I think probably do it as anonymous because I spoke to them before I actually saw my incident in the early hours of the morning. But I posted this conversation as anonymous due to my previous experience in the past, as we're still going through now, I suppose, to an extent, but also to gauge people's reaction to it. I just needed a confidence that I was dealing with like-minded people and received so much, as I just said, so much negativity and that. So, but
which is unfortunate.
Yeah. I had felt though for a while this conversation needed to be shared. I mean, I've sort of kept it to myself, and I obviously I'd tell family members and that. But
look, certainly appreciate the efforts anyway. It's definitely something that can't go unappreciated.
No,
I suppose. I'm trying to look for the right words.
Yeah, it had to be told, and but I lived on a sort of like a loop cul-de-sac. There's one way in, and you went sort of like round in a circle, and then you went back out the same way you came in. And I lived on the left-hand side, about 4 houses from this family sort of thing. There was mother and father, obviously, and there was two boys, but one of the boys didn't live with them, and there was the younger girl. She was about 10, and basically I'm repeating what I wrote but I'm sort of saying it verbally now on my post and that. But I was stood looking out because I knew the shuttle was coming over at a certain time, and I was stood at the front of my garden sort of thing, and I was looking out the front of the property waiting for the shuttle to fly over. I think it was about 7:30 at night, and they used to go out at all hours of the day and night with this poor little girl to try and tire her out. I mean, I think she was on drugs and all that, but I think they was trying to get away from that to sort of, what's the word, sort of
take away the anxiety sort of thing.
Yeah, make them a bit more lethargic in her reasonings and all like that. But she was highly sensitive, and when I first moved into the house, the people across the road, they sort of said, well, down there's a little girl, just be careful, how you look at her, what you say to her and all like that, because she's prone to sort of fits and screams and that. So she's fearful screaming, and it could occur any moment. So, but at the time, nobody knew anyway why she was like that.
Yeah.
And she was under observation, medical. Well, they've all been to the medical specialist sort of thing, but which I didn't know at the time. But anyway, I avoided her. I didn't even look at her. Simple as that. But as I say, I was out there at the front then. I'd heard them coming around the corner, and I thought, oh my goodness gracious me, crap. Here I am standing waiting for the shuttle to come across, and then there's all this lot are going to come here and that. And I thought, oh no, good and Bennett. But anyway, they came round, and then she said, oh, how are you, sort of thing, all right, yeah. And the inevitable came, like, what are you doing still here, sort of thing. So I basically said to her, I'm still here looking for the shuttle fly over at any moment. And well, it was just her and her son and the little girl. The little girl was playing about 2 or 3 meters away from me, sort of thing. And the son and the mother's face just sort of, just incredible. The alarm, or the way the face has just changed. I thought, what have I said here? I had no idea. And so she sort of said, oh, that's interesting, And the atmosphere changed, something terrible. And anyway, the shuttle flew over, and I pointed it out to the mother and the son, sort of thing. And at the time when she saw it flying across, she seemed to go into a bit of a semi-panic, and he seemed to be a bit of anxiety in him, and that moving around a bit and all like that. I'm trying to usher the girl from looking up into the sky and all like that. But to me at the time, I must admit, it did seem very strange and very odd, and I thought, what the hell's going off here, sort of thing,
Yeah.
It's hard to express, it was a very uncomfortable moment, to say the least.
Yeah.
And with the shuttle disappearing, the mother said to me, turned and thanked me very much, for showing her it, sort of thing. But I didn't believe her. I just thought, just being, because she was a nice lady, she was just being nice.
Yeah.
And as I said before, I think I mentioned before program, I have a moment where I sort of say things really stupid, and I said to her, No, I just was making sure you didn't think it was a UFO, So, oh God, and Benny, you should have seen her face then, and well, it's making me feel uneasy now, sort of thing. And I remember she sort of looked at the sun, and the sun sort of not raising his eyebrows, but you could see his eyes were wide open, sort of thing. And it seemed for a couple of minutes, it was probably only a few seconds, but it seemed like a couple of minutes. She says, "Oh, do you believe in UFOs?" And I thought, well, at this moment, I've got to be sensible. I've got to give her a far better and a mature answer than what I've done before. So I informed her principally. I said, "Yeah, I do. Yeah." And that's the reason being is, as far as I'm concerned, there will be planets out there with nothing, that we know about, etc., and possibly they will sustain life. So, and there's a high probability they could be intelligent, more intelligent than ours. So I seemed to change her a bit, and then she says, which I did feel strange what was strange at the time. She says, "Oh, I'm pleased to hear you say that. Why would you be pleased for me to say that?
Yeah, that's a bit of a weird response.
That's what I thought, cool, blimey, So, but anyway, yeah, she said she began to tell me the experience that she and her family had back in 1988. But first of all, she said to me, "Had you heard of the Knowles abduction?" I said, "Well, I had. I did vaguely remember it because I read it in Aussie magazine while I lived in New Zealand, and so I wasn't, conversant with it, but I sort of recalled it." And then she says, "Oh," and she began to tell me the story of how I was driving along the Nullarbor and coming from Perth to Adelaide, and they was coming. Obviously, it was in the summer, and they decided to travel at night, so it would be cooler. I don't think the car was in the best condition, but it would be cooler, sort of thing. So. And they was going along, and they noticed behind them what they thought was a road train coming up fairly fast. And the reason why they thought it was a road train was due to all the lights they could see. It was covered in lights, which road trains are, a lot of them anyway.
Yeah.
So, but she mentioned how the road train it suddenly improved, got faster and faster, and caught them up, and it got right up the rear of the car and pushed them along faster and faster. And she said,
"Oh, wow."
I was absolutely screaming. They could tell then as well because a voice and a body movements, and then the kid as well. You could see basically in some respects she was reliving her experience and how it must have been petrifying for her and her family.
Yeah.
And she says, everybody in the car was screaming hysterically, and what terrified. She says we thought we were going to die. This thing was pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, and they said they just couldn't stop. And what made it worse, the car was lit up. They couldn't really see. It was so bright in the car and that it was visually difficult. And this thing just kept pushing them and pushing them to the point where she said they couldn't go any faster. And her husband just pulled the car off the road onto the side, to get away from what they believe was a maniac driving a road train.
Yeah.
But she says, as they came to a stop, crash bang wallop, come to a stop on the embankment on the side there and that, they realised that the road train had followed them, much to their terror.
Oh, so it stopped behind them.
It followed them, and she's basically, it was right behind them. This is what she told me. It was right behind them. And then it went up vertically over the car, and over there, and she did this blinding light that lit up the whole interior of the car. She said you couldn't see anything. And she says, I don't know how long it was, but it could have been a few seconds, but I know it was, but she says, then it just seemed to zoom straight up in the sky. She says, it then disappeared. She says, she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. And she said, this took place 2 weeks prior to the Knowles abduction. But nobody knows anything about their experience or this incident, except for the respective medical authorities, because they'd all been under the the specialists or whatever they were that was looking after them, especially the doctor. They didn't seem to be too bad now, but you could see it was upsetting them, sort of thing. But she says she'd never told anybody, unless it was the specialist, because they don't like to go and see him and all like that. So there was people out there who was aware of it. But nobody knew their story. They only knew of the Knowles story, which had happened 2 weeks later. So, and she told me this, as I say, back in, about 93 or something like that, because I moved here in 92, 93. I wasn't long, because they was already living in that cul-de-sac area I was there, and then they moved on.
Yeah.
They moved on to Melbourne about 94. They wasn't there long. So whether she knew she was going away or being transferred, or her husband was being transferred, because he was a very clever fella, to a big industrial plant in Melbourne, I don't know. But I've never told anybody about this. But because she says you said you believed in him, and I put it to our story. But what, like I said on my write-up on the post, I knew they was telling the truth, because she'd be talking and her son would be about 2 meters away and he'd be adding bits to it, and he'd then put something else toward it. But it was the way they both kept looking at the kid, making sure that the kid who was playing couldn't get anywhere near in the conversation or hear them, sort of thing, And if they'd rehearsed this, and they did a damn good job of it. You know what I mean? It's that's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't just somebody just like I'm telling you a story. You think, oh yeah. But these two were just telling different parts of the story. There was both making it as a whole sort of thing. But the telling part was her body movements. You could see she was anxious, and the way her facial expressions were and all like that. But also the way they kept looking at the daughter to make sure the daughter, he'd hover in and then she'd hover out, and he'd say something and then he'd go back out and then she'd come back in. And I sort of thought, far out, this is just unbelievable. I mean, it really left me gobsmacked, absolutely. And I thought, wow, you poor people, obviously, I mean, you hear about UFO sightings, you hear about encounters, etc., but it had certainly affected this family, for sure.
Yeah, wow.
And as I say, that poor little girl,
Yeah.
She I don't know if she's suffering to this day, because obviously we lost contact with them when they moved on to Melbourne.
Yep.
But Joe Blimey. So,
wow.
But then it wasn't until then. This is my experience. This happened after them. This was in June 1995 that I'd had a sighting of what I think significance that made me question what I'd previously witnessed, basically through everything where I'd sort of assumed or felt or possibly believed was something else out there, extraterrestrial, etc., etc. It just threw it out the window, sort of thing. When I tend to look at the sky, because I go out in the mornings and that, and you see the satellites or whatever they are, things going across this shuttle, not the shuttle now, but the space station, and I think was it the Space Lab, is it, or something?
Starlink going across now.
Starlink,
stuff.
Yeah. You see, well, they're all going at a similar speed, sort of thing, and you get a feeling. It's okay. It's sort of it's man-made, unless it's something that's going. If it's not man-made, it's something going slow, But generally, you can just sort of palm them off as being man-made. But
that's it.
But I mean, I got to work. I used to get to work earlier, because we started at 6 o'clock and used to get there at about 5:20. Simple reason being is because I could get there in 15 minutes. If I went 10 minutes later, it would take me 35 minutes to get to work. And don't get me wrong, I didn't like work, and I don't like work. But I just felt that was the best idea or the best way to do it, because it saved you on petrol and also saved you on stress driving through with all the idiots on the road.
Yeah.
So used to get there, and when I got there this one morning, and I thought it's a long building, manufacturing building, typical long manufacturing building, and we was at one end of it, and I thought, oh, Mr. Trevor can't see me in his office, sort of thing. So I was zooming in, and I thought, oh, I'll go out and have a talk to him and see what he's up to, sort of thing. So this is how close it was. If I hadn't gone out there, I would not have seen this. So it was just that impulse to go out there and basically, how you doing, mate? What you doing? What you up to? So, but I've got to emphasise the fact that Trev was a complete, and I mean a complete and utter non-believer. I mean, we'd had many a discussion, heated debate, and a lot of abuse had come my way because I told him that I felt that there could be life out there. I'm sorry, I don't believe that there's nothing out there, sort of thing. And he was one of these who basically says, "Nah, you've got rocks in your head. You need to see somebody. You're mental, etc., etc."
The typical response.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but that was his ideals and his beliefs, and that was it. But I'm a bit more open-minded, sort of thing. And as I say, especially having saw that incident back in the 70s. So, and he also came, from a military background, and that he was complete and utter nutter. and I'm saying that mildly. Absolutely, absolutely. The guy was crazy, absolutely crazy. But you got to know him, he was all right, but God, blimey, he was a nutter. So anyway, he was out the back there, like, we were looking towards westerly direction, basically towards the ocean, sort of thing, because this road went straight towards the ocean, sort of thing, and I could I just on the horizon, I just saw these two objects, and generally when you see something, oh yeah, it's just, it's not. Doesn't sort of drag your attention, you could be playing or this and that, but I saw these two objects, and it's the way, the speed they came up over the horizon, and straight away I thought, what on earth are these? Straight away, it takes something to impact my sort of attention, and it really does. My wife just said, she said, oh, did you see that? Nah, did you see that? It just amazes her. But it takes something to really get my sort of, ability to sort of look at you and think, oh yeah, what's happening there? And I saw these two objects right now, and I thought, Gordon Bennett, I'm trying not to swear here, and because I was stood on this sort of steel was all piled up. I stood on top of this steel, and I jumped down, and I'm screaming at Trev, and I said, Trev, look at them. I can remember him. He turned and looked at me and said, what's up with this nutter? You could see the way he looked at me. He's got a mental problem. So I was screaming. I gave him his due. I'm screaming and I'm pointing. Look at these two. Look at these two objects here. And they flew straight over us. But I've never seen anything move so fast in my life. They went in a westerly direction, sort of thing, across the northeastern suburbs of Adelaide. And and within a couple of seconds, they're gone. The base of the in a few seconds they're gone. And I can remember looking at Trev with his facial expression was, what on earth was that? What on earth was they? And he's looking at him in that direction to see where they're gone. They're gone. They've gone out of sight, mate. They've gone. And I kept looking back, thinking, is any more of these damn things coming? I just kept looking back, and it was at the height of about what we believe to be the shuttle height at the time. This is the shuttle.
Yeah, so I think it's about above the atmosphere at least.
Yeah, and the sun was shining above them, so they look very similar to, like, so just for argument's sake, you could say there was two shuttles, flying across the sky. But the difference was, the shuttle or the space station, but the shuttle travels about 17,000 miles per hour. What's it in kilometers?
Yep, so about 27,000 kilometers.
So 27. We estimated at the time minimum these was going 10 times faster.
Wow.
10 times faster. Okay, for argument's sake, let's just say we over exaggerated, but okay, let's go down to something like 5 times faster, which I know for a fact they was going far in excess of that. So that's 85,000 miles per hour, whichever that to be.
That would have been incredible.
And, you just look. I didn't know anything at the time that we got that could go that fast, and not just one of them, but there was two of them.
Yeah. So how long do you think the whole experience took altogether? Like by the time you spotted it?
I think when I first saw him, because I saw him coming over the horizon, I jumped down. So I counted it out, I think, afterwards, and I think basically because I did see him coming from a fair old distance from the horizon.
Yeah.
And then they did behind us go a fair old distance. I think you're probably looking at about between 6 and 8 seconds. Simple as that.
The whole experience about 6 seconds.
Yeah.
8 seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't
hooking.
think I don't think it'd be. It was just so fast. That's why I jumped off there, because I could saw him powering coming across the horizon, and I jumped down and I told him, so you go like 1 and 2 and 3, and then he looked and we both turned, and 4 and 5, 6. Perhaps going into the disc, because as I said, we could see a feral whack.
Yeah.
And so you'd be looking at a good 6 seconds, and they'd gone from way out there to way over there.
Yeah, wow.
It was a massive, so many, I don't know how many Ks it would have been, but it was just incredible, I mean, you watch the shuttle, for argument's sake, or you watch the space station now fly that distance, and it takes 4 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes in a good occasion.
It takes 4 minutes to do that. They did it in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, that's
so
incredible.
maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe it wasn't 10 times faster. Maybe it was 30, 40 times faster.
Yeah.
If you look at it that way, because I watched it yesterday morning. I watched the space station go across, and it was possibly less distance rather, and that took at least 4 minutes.
Yep.
So
Look, honestly, I can relate because I've seen something similar, the same thing. It was coming on dusk, and a bright light right on the distance of the horizon there to the south, and I'm sort of sitting there watching, spotting this thing, and going, "Oh, what the hell's that?" And it's just gone from one side of the horizon straight to the other side, and it was like gone within like maybe 10, 20 seconds, maybe give or take,
yeah, yeah.
like somewhere between that. And it's like, what the hell does that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it. I mean, I'm talking back in 1995, and I mean, as I said before, um, I would have thought by now. I would have thought by now that if this was our technology, our man-made technology, we would have seen or experienced something of that by now. I mean, we're talking 20 odd years, 25 years ago, 26 years ago. And as I say, Trev, I mean, he was a non-believer, and I went up to him, and I didn't want the argument at the time, but I knew for a fact that these was UFOs as far as I was concerned. It just there's no arguments there with it, sort of thing. But I thought, I'm not going to argue with him. I've seen what I've seen. It's simple as that. So I just went up to him and said, look, I remember saying to him, well, I've never seen planes fly as fast as that before.
Yeah, it would have blown his mind.
Oh, he totally freaked. Well, I say he freaked. You could see it in his face, and it seemed to be a pause. And as I say, probably about 20 seconds, he just came back and he says, "They're not from this planet. We've got nothing that can fly at that height and at that fast."
Yeah.
And I thought, there's no, I agree with you, mate. But I was very surprised that he came back with that. But you could see in his face, that it had affected him. It definitely did affect him. And again, I think I emphasised in my write-up, I can't give you an idea how I felt that morning, and I believed in UFOs.
Yeah.
I was stunned. Mullet is not the words that sort of put across what I'd experienced. Your body's. I was just so lethargic. I just couldn't get my head around it. I tried, like I said before, I try and analyse these things. I try and explain them away. I try and think what they could be and all that. But I couldn't come up with anything. It was just the speed that kept coming back. What have we got that can go that fast?
Yeah, that's
incredible. I tried rationally all sorts of ways to explain it away, but no. And I remember Trevi, because he was a leading hand, and generally he was always in and out of his office, always doing it. But he just sat in his office for over 4 hours. He never came out. Came out, and then he came. Which was, and even the guys because I wasn't a part of his department. I was in his department, but I was part of another department, and even his subordinates, the people underneath him, were coming up to me. What's the matter with you? Why aren't you coming out? I don't know. Well, I'm not going to tell you. Nothing to do with me. I was shocked. I was shocked enough, mate. I didn't any more. He came out one bit, and you could see he was wanting to talk to me and all, but I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to talk about it. Just didn't want to talk about it. That's how it affected me, and I believed in the damn things.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I think it was about an hour or so later, and we sort of crossed paths, and I basically said, look, I've been thinking about this, and we've got to report this, because we had a UFO member at work, and I might add, Trev had basically given him such an horrendous time regarding his beliefs in UFOs, and he birded him, sort of thing, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
And I went to the UFO guy, group guy, and I said, look, we'd like to report to site. And he thought I was messing him around, but I think he changed when he saw my face, because I think I was still in shock. I've got an expression on my face like wet fish. Yeah. And he interviewed both of us, and he saw how we'd reacted to the whole situation, and he basically reported it. And so there was some rumour, some guy was telling me a few years later that it had been picked up. These two objects had been picked up at Edinburgh Air Base.
Oh, so wow, that far off. Hang on, lost you. You there? Hello? Oh no, I lost him. What's happened? Oh, he's dropped out. Hang on, guys. We're going to try and get him back, I think. Or what's he done? He's muted himself. You there, Kevin? We're having technical difficulty now. Oh no. I don't think they want us hearing the story. Bit of a conspiracy going on. Check your mute there, mic button there, Kevin. We've lost you. No, I'll try and get you back on the call again. Hang on, mate. We'll get you. Are we back? Yep, we're back.
Yeah. No, I don't know what happened there. I kept pressing it on and off, and no, we just.
No, we lost you. Bit of conspiracy there, mate. I think they're onto us.
Well, you never know, mate. You never know.
That's it.
I tell you what, at my age, I don't let much go by me in respect to that could be. You could be right there. Could be right. So, but so going back to the guy. I've lost my train of thought here, but it certainly made me wonder what I saw that morning, and we was given. We reported it. We was given. Third degree, because the rumour went around the factory pretty fast. The one we told the UFO guy, because I think he wanted to make a big scene of it because of the hard time he'd be given, politely putting it. And lots of guys came up to us and they give us a third degree. They really grilled us and all that. And I think, like as Emirata, their attitude towards the UFOs changed, and especially with because Trevor's a total non-believer, and he told them basically exactly what we'd seen and what I'd said.
Yeah, wow.
So it changed him. I think it changed him a lot as well. But it's not really for me to say on here anyway.
Yeah, look, I honestly hope Trevor apologised to the UFO guy for giving him so much crap.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I could tell you another story of that. Well, when he went out to him, I'll tell you something. When he went out to him, like, can you tell him the story? And I thought, this is all right, because I'm stood in the distance. I didn't want to influence what he was going to say, so I stood away from it. And when he was talking to him and all that, and he says, that's interesting, because he's brilliant. And he says to him at the end of it all, he says, and if you get any of your UFO nutters to come round to my house, he says, I'm going to come back and break all your bones in your body.
Oh, no.
So he finished off the way Trev would be and all that. There's a lot more to it than I can't say. But there's a lot more to it like that. I had to laugh, at the time. I thought, well, he's told his story. But at the end of the day, he's gone back to where he was before to an extent. So,
oh, wow.
So now that was the one that sort of changed me a lot. And as I say, a lot of my so-called UFO or unidentified objects in the sky, I just put them in the rubbish bin after that. I thought, nah, these are UFOs. They're just the way they sped across that sky and all like that. I thought, no way. So, but no, have we about finished or?
No. I've got some questions here for myself. Actually.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah. Look, I was going to go back to the family there, where they were speaking to with a little girl and that.
Yeah.
Now, did they happen to mention anything like they could have lost, the missing time that usually gets experienced in these sort of situations?
No, she. It's one of those conversations I wish, which is unusual for me. I wish I asked a lot more questions, but I think I was a bit. A bit overwhelmed at the time. I was a bit perplexed. If I'd have been aware or to give me to mention it once before, I'd have gotten, but I didn't really speak to them much after that because, as I say, they disappeared and passed it across. But no, they didn't. They just mentioned that this bright light came, and then at the end of it all, well, I don't think she told me the whole of the story. My personal opinion is that I do think that there must have been something happened similar to that other Knowles incident and all like that,
Okay.
So, but no, they didn't mention about lost time, to me anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you think that the little girl could have been still experiencing things after this whole scenario happened? Like, do you think that the family had still been experiencing things?
I think the little girl, she was definitely not. Depending on what you mean by experiencing, I know the little girl was having lots of nightmares.
Yeah, so if she's having lots of nightmares, do you think that she could be getting abducted still, while she's in bed asleep or something like that, and taking her away sort of thing, like that kind of concept?
I wouldn't have a clue on that. No, they didn't mention it. I wouldn't have a clue on that. No.
So just making assumptions on things that could be a possibility then.
Yeah. I do know she was having terrible nightmares and that. And as I say, they'd be walking all hours of the day. It was not uncommon to see them or hear them in the middle of the night walking.
Yeah. Okay. So they're trying to maybe stay up late, trying to keep guard, maybe, or something.
Yeah. No, she was constantly being chaperoned, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was always somebody with her, always. No, and
Wow.
that's the fact. Yeah, that's the fact. There was always somebody with her, you know.
Honestly,
And
I hope that the little girl sort of grew up in a better manner
well,
than she did.
she'd have to be in her 30s now, sort of thing. So, 95, she'd have to be in her 30s now.
Jeez,
So,
it'd be great if she was actually in this group here and actually found
Yeah.
your story and gone, that's about me or something like that. That'd be absolutely great
Yeah.
hearing her side of the stories anyway and see if she
yeah, well,
continued with any experiences.
well, I mean, judging by at that particular period of time, I think she wanted to forget it. Simple as that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't blame her if it's gone
Yeah.
that sort of effect on her at least. Yeah, I would want to forget that too. So, but
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing, there's a difference between, you've had a UFO sight and you've had a UFO experience, but it's like ghost stories, I suppose. People see they poltergeist in the house and it's petrifying, and then there's those people say, "Oh, I've seen a ghost." It's there's more sometimes to the story. Some people, that what she experienced and abduction, I don't know. I mean, I've often wondered if they were abducted, and they did have lost time, but they didn't say it to me. They didn't say it to me. No, simple as that.
either way, would have been a terrifying experience getting chased
Well,
by
they
something.
had a Oh yeah, I mean, as I say, she just thought it was a road train. I remember saying it plain as day. We just thought it was a road train. We saw it in the distances, and then it seemed to get faster and faster, and then it was pushing them and pushing and pushing them, and they just couldn't get out of its way. It wouldn't let them out of the way, and so in the end, they ended up taking a punt and driving off the road, and this thing followed. That was the thing. So it stunned him. It followed. So
Wow.
and then it went. When it went up, and she just went woof up. These are her words. She said it went woof up, and then she went over the car, and she says there was the most blinding light. She said she just couldn't see. It was that bright. So I mean, I did think afterwards, and I wanted to talk to her again, but I just never got the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then they've gone to Melbourne. He got promoted again to go to Melbourne. So he was very cluey fellow, this guy.
Yeah.
In the manufacturing industry, that is. So I don't want to give too much away because I do know the names and all like that. But
Yep, no, that's fair enough. Like, definitely don't want to go and bring it out to the open there so they get chased down and harassed or whatever. So definitely.
that is exactly right. Yeah. There's people out there that probably give them a hard time. They don't need a hard time. They weren't living through the best of times when I was talking to them. So I think by moving them away, but it just seems strange. Some bad luck in respect to them moving from Perth to Adelaide to start a new job, and then that incident happened.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh.
Yeah.
So what do you think these things are? Do you think they're from another planet, or do you think it's a bit of human engineering going on here? What are your thoughts on the whole UFO aspect?
Well, the thing is, though, I mean, they've been reported for a long, long time, now, haven't they?
Yeah.
I've been following him from the 70s, and we're still not. My ideology is that they've been reported from the 70s. I saw that incident in the 70s. So where are they now? I mean, if some government had got them, we'd be aware of them by now. It's as simple as that.
At least
But
you
like
wouldn't
I said,
think so.
It's as simple as that. Generally, like in 10 to 15 years, you can right now the air bases in the UK and in America and all like that, and Europe, these people testing planes, you see it, and then about 10 years later, you see its modern version. You say, oh yeah, that's why you used to be seen flying around.
Yeah.
But this is 25 years. I mean, I saw that those two objects going across phenomenal speeds back in the 90s. We're 2021 now. Come on, there must be. We'd have to be aware of them by now. But I mean, as I say, we've been reporting sightings, or there's been sightings reported for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not pushing the Bible here or anything like that because I'm not in that way inclined. But you only have to look at Ezekiel. I mean, you could read that the way you want to interpret it. You could think, yeah, well, that was a UFO that landed and blah blah blah. Simple as that. That was their way of talking about it at the time.
Yeah.
And through the ages and all like that. And
Yep, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, all that sort of stuff there. There's all little hidden things here and there.
Yeah, exactly right. It just seems to be, depends what you want to believe and how much you take from it. But I just think that we've been visited for a while.
Yeah.
For a while. And I'd like to think if that's the case, then they're not, what's the word, aggressive.
Yep.
It's simple as that. But now we see, you look at those reports now that came on Spotlight, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago and all like that. I mean, if the Americans are saying it's not theirs, they don't believe it's, well, they're not sure if it's Chinese or Russian, but I mean, if China or Russia had got them, I'm sure we'd be aware of it right now.
Oh, definitely. I think they would have tried to throw some bit of dominance there anyway, a bit of superiority.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what, well, I say, I mean, without getting political, I mean, that's what communism, Marxism, and all that's all about. I mean, I had a family who was captured by them in the war, just after the war, over in Europe, and they suffered from, basically they you couldn't say what you wanted to say, you couldn't think. They told you what to think, and they told you what to say, and that's what that's all about.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So, I mean, I'm sure they would have let us know that they'd got something like that.
Definitely. Well, you look at Russia and America back in '69, I think, when they're doing the race to the moon. Like, America had to go and beat Russia and go, no, we beat you. Like, we're better than you, sort of thing. So, like, like you're saying, if China or Russia had something that was better than the Americans, we would definitely know about it.
I believe so. I believe so. Most definitely. I mean, you keep your cards close to your chest when it comes to military hardware, etc., etc. But somewhere on the line, it gets introduced like that stealth. Somewhere on the line, it gets introduced. It's got to be, it's got to be out there. You've got to be aware of it. But it's just the speed. I mean, they say. I mean, I'm not highly conversant with all aspects of the human body, etc. But the G-forces, etc., etc. We can only go so fast without splattering all over the place. You know? And I think that's what was mentioned on that Spotlight program. I mean, these two objects I saw, well, I mean, the phenomenal speed that was going at. Well, they're telling us that the human can't do that.
Yeah.
And then these objects that they're picking up, the sudden rapid change of direction. Well, the human body can't do that.
Yeah, well, going from like 30,000 feet to like 5 feet off the ground or something like that, off the water's edge or something, in a matter of seconds, like, we definitely can't do that.
No. I mean, unless they've got a spacesuit or whether they've got a ship that eliminates all that. Well, again, as I say, I'm sure we would have known by now. I'm sure they'd have an old Air Force of them if it was man-made.
Yeah.
Some, it's a bit, I don't know, computers just gone there. So, yeah, that's my opinion. That's just my opinion, simple as that. I'm sure they would have let us know by now. I really do think that.
Definitely. And, like, especially if they were aggressive, like, if they were an aggressive sort of visitors or whatever you want to call them and such, like, they could have outdone us years ago and still present to this day. So there's nothing aggressive about them, surely.
Yeah, I think as well. I think they're observing. As I say, I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to be, but I do think they're observing. And I remember back in the 70s, they used to say that they used to have issues around nuclear power stations.
Yes.
And other places, military places, and all like that. And you may look at the Rendlesham in the 80s. The fighter bombers that used to have the nuclear warheads on them and all like that.
Yep.
They all seem to be hanging around them. Now, I mean, if that was Russian or that was Chinese, again, I'm sure we'd know about it.
Yep.
It's simple as that. There seems to be a pattern of them. And like I say on that Spotlight, we haven't putting too much emphasis on that program. I mean, this guy mentioned that they just turned the nuclear warheads off and said, well, this is what we can do. What can you do?
Yeah, there you go. It's one of those things, eh?
Yeah, I do think we're being observed and etc. But I don't know. But again, going back to the Second World War, you talk about these Foo Fighters. What was happening there?
Yeah.
What was they up to?
I don't know. There's a lot of mystery there, isn't there?
There's lots of things. As I say, again, it all boils down to the fact it's not been released. And this US, where it is, they're going to be releasing possibly towards the end of the month, should be interesting. I'm not holding my breath on it, if I'm perfectly honest, but I do think that we've moved a long way since the 70s. It's taken 40 years to go to a stage like this where they're actually sort of saying, well, we don't really know what they are.
Yeah, definitely. What would your thoughts be on that? This is my opinion. Like, this is something that I've spoken with people a lot on this one. Like, our technology just totally boomed after we had the Roswell incident.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's something that we could have like reverse engineered into that? Like, computer chips, CDs, microwaves, all that sort of stuff just started coming out of nowhere.
Well, the microwaves, they reckon, came from NASA, didn't they? I mean, going back to what you're saying now, they reckon microwaves was a product of the trials and error of NASA when they was trying to, whatever they was trying to invent, and they stumbled on the microwave. Again, it's to do with space. So whether they'd been introduced to, as you said, trying to reverse engineer something, and say, oh, well, we've developed this, and this microwave, and it came from NASA. So I do know that. So there could be a bit of a link there, sort of thing. And I'm sure that to an extent, I mean, maybe you could say that about the stealth.
Yeah, definitely.
My first thought was when I heard that, I thought, well, that gets rid of that garbage then about you can't get on radar, etc., sonar, and where did we get it from? How did we find all that out? I mean, that's just incredible, development.
Yeah, especially at those times anyway, yeah.
Particular period of time. I know they've said in the past that we do tend to develop a lot more as in respects of whatever going forward in manufacturing, etc., and planes. And I mean, you look at the First World War, you look at 1910, you look at the aircraft, you look at 1920.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yep, going from the Wright brothers to something that goes into a full prop to and then into jets as well. So that's what, a couple of decades.
And then you look at 35, 45. We got the propellered aircraft, and then you look at 1945, you got rockets.
Yeah, it's just a massive jump.
A massive leap for mankind, as they say. It's simple as that. But no. But now I think I did see something the other week that sort of intrigued me. I'm not saying it was a UFO or anything like that, but I was walking my wife's dog, the pleasures of being a husband. The early hours of the morning, it was about 5:30 because she starts at 6.
Yep.
And I saw this, well, obviously a satellite or something, I don't know, going across, and I picked it up and that, because I scan the skies. That's the other thing. I don't just sort of look in one direction. I'm scanning it all the time.
Yep.
Looking around in all directions. And I saw this satellite sort of come from behind of her, like an oval-shaped cloud. I thought, oh yeah, nothing to it. And then I noticed the cloud emit at the nearest end to me of this oval-shaped cloud, colours of red, blue, and white, just like a blanket flash. Woof.
Oh, that's different.
Well, that's right, I thought. But then I thought, well, hang on, because we have planes taking off at that moment in time. They tend to fly over the area where I am, but they go around in a circle, and you sort of, you see them going around a couple of times and that. And I thought, well, maybe it's because when you get a plane really high up, you can see it pulsate sometimes. Because it's high up, all its lights. I thought, what if it's a plane behind the cloud sort of thing? And I thought, I'll wait for another flash then. It's going to do it again. And so I must have been about there 10 minutes, and there was no flash and there was no plane. So,
oh, jeez, that certainly raises some questions then.
As I just thought, well, it must be a natural phenomenon. I thought, I just thought something must have, like electric lightning or something like that. I just thought, it must have been a natural phenomenon. But I just thought, well, that's interesting. If I hadn't seen the satellite, I wouldn't have taken much notice of the cloud, and and that's what I got from it, sort of thing. So that's about the latest thing I've seen.
Yeah, it's certainly different.
Yeah, very different. Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know where it was. I'm not trying to make out it's a UFO or anything.
Yeah. No, it's just something. One of those things you just. Yeah. You just a bit of a. I don't know. I'm lost now. I'm like, you just lost for words. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you, what's that? What's that? So
that's
it's weird.
incredible.
But what made it even more so, as I say, I waited for it to do it again because it was a fair longish cloud. I waited for it to do it again. I thought, it's not going to. Okay, I'll wait for the plane to come out then because it's got to come out. Simple as that. But no, nothing did. So I thought, well, that's weird. So unless it was something, as I say, to do with the cloud, some natural phenomenon, I've no idea. I don't know. Didn't take my breath away. But yeah, so that's the latest one I had.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
So that's my personal experiences relating to UFOs. I hope it's been of interest to you and your listeners.
Oh, mate, it's been absolutely great. Listen to it. It's incredible. It is awesome.
I hope I haven't waffled too much.
No, mate, it's been absolutely beautiful. I mean, like I said, mate, before we started chatting, mate, it's going to be a beautiful voice, mate, and it's definitely been beautiful.
Yeah, well, I did get washed.
Yeah.
So no problem.
Oh, mate.
All right.
Look, is there anything else you want to add to it before we go and finish up?
No, not at this stage in time. I just say to people, I have read a few comments where people are saying that they've not seen anything and they'd love to see something. Well, I mean, it's one of those hit and miss. Just keep looking, scan the skies. Don't just look in one direction. Keep looking around, and somewhere along the line, you may be lucky. I mean, I've been around a long time now, and I've had 2 major incidents, and it's taken a long time to do that.
Yeah.
So that's only because, as I say, I have scanned the skies.
Yep.
Probably more so than the average Joe out there, anyway. I always have to
be in the right place at the right time, pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's the factor of life, isn't it?
Yep.
Factor of life.
It is indeed.
So, so.
Mate, it's been beautiful having you on here, mate. I appreciate the effort coming out, mate. It's I'm hopefully going to encourage more people to come out and tell their stories as well. That's definitely what we want to try and achieve here, and take away the stigma that follows this sort of genre.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
there's a lot of credibility to it.
It shouldn't be around nowadays, as you say. We should be more mature, more educated, and more willing to sort of accept that there are things out there we don't know anything about.
Definitely, and especially the government's coming out now and all that sort of stuff. They're admitting to it. That's it's going to be more than enough to sort of stop this sort of stigma.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I say, if you look in the 70s, there was nothing, and then you was controlling what you said. I mean, they sort of like nowadays, if you don't follow this certain cult, or whatever you want to call them, these people, you aren't good enough for society, etc., etc. And it was the same in them days. I mean, I remember people blatantly abusing me to my face, just because I said, well, look, I do believe there's people out there, and they wouldn't have it. They said, no, you need to see somebody. You have got a problem.
Yeah.
But nowadays, we've been introduced to a number of facets of changes in respect of that. They reckon now that possibly we came from outer space anyway, and this possible life, not that we know it or whatever, on other planets. So you've got to start accepting the fact that they're introducing us to it. It's only a matter of time that when they will have to come clean. And I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but I do think it will be soon. Simple as that. So,
yeah, well, we've got a couple of weeks left till I think that what was it, that
major release?
That major release that's supposed to be coming out, that patent that went out or something like that, that's supposed to be out in the next couple of weeks, and that should hopefully give us a big breakdown, or at least hoping for a big breakdown. But
well, I'm not holding my breath, but
no, me neither.
I do hope, but I'm not holding my breath, But I do think what's been released in the last few weeks and last couple of years, I think we'll just probably emphasise that and might just give you a little bit extra. But
yeah,
I can still remember. I think the story was when Orson Welles did a program in America and said they started the program. This is newsflash. We are being invaded from aliens from Mars, and I think everybody ran off to the subways, didn't they, or something?
Oh, so, yeah. You're talking about like the War of the Worlds sort of thing that went off. Yeah.
So I think that's what they don't want a mass panic in the general society, but I think you'll find that they may slightly improve our knowledge or introduce us more to the fact that there is something out there.
Definitely, and people are definitely still having these sightings that are going on. So there is credibility behind people's encounters for sure.
Exactly right.
Well, mate, I don't think we've got any questions here for you because everyone's just been too intent on listening to us. So yeah,
I hope so. I hope they've enjoyed it. So it's been great to get it off my chest, and certainly some of the stories and that. So, and I look forward to hearing the next podcast.
Definitely, mate. Well, mate, we'll talk to you in the future, mate, and all the best, and hopefully you get yourself another